Brilliant. Hi everyone, thank you again for joining PA Live. This is our second session of the day, and it's actually a panel debate, planning for a new kind of office Christmas party. So joining me on the panel today, I have Yvonne Reay-Scott, who is an executive assistant for Mount Anvil. Yvonne has been assistant to the chief executive, a multi-award winning EA and mentor. She has over 30 years experience within the industry. Yvonne actively advocates her role as a career choice and regularly presents at PA events, and conferences in the UK. She also contributes to an editorial in industry magazines, sharing tips and advice for organising ambitious, large, and we'll get there in a minute, ambitious, large-scale domestic and overseas events. Secondly up, we have Andrew Taylor. Andrew is head of conference centres for Warwick University. So Andrew has over 25 years experience in the hospitality industry, has previously worked for Forte Hotels, Hilton, Sodexo, before moving to Warwick Conferences. The conference centre have over 450 bedrooms, 100 meeting rooms, and may cater for over 1,000 people every day. Thirdly, we've got Claire Bowley. She is the MD of Dynamic Conference and Events. This, as an events industry professional for over 30 years, Claire originally cut her teeth as a stage manager in theatre and performance events before starting Dynamic Events in 1997. The company now manages events both live and virtual for many industry sectors, including financial services, legal, manufacturing and tech, with the emphasis on delivering exceptional events that leave powerful impressions on both delegates and clients. In the current climate, Dynamic Events have helped clients pivot their live events to compelling virtual experiences. And lastly, we have Jules, who is Director of Space Meetings and Events. And Space Meetings and Events are a full service agency offering a free venue finding service, group accommodation and full event management. With over 20 years experience in the hospitality industry, they are skilled in finding venues that exceed expectations and also specialise in virtual and hybrid events. And I think kind of that's the way we've all had to go, hence why we're now on a panel debate on Zoom. So welcome guys. We're going to start with some questions. So we'll start with you, Yvonne. Firstly, large gatherings of people are likely to be restricted for the foreseeable future. What changes are you making to existing plans for your work Christmas celebrations?
Gosh, right. Well, we've all been in isolation for what seems like a lifetime. And I guess businesses like us, as well as venues, we're all trying to second guess what will or won't be allowed. I think one thing that we can all agree on is that large gatherings of people are likely to be restricted for the foreseeable future. And a lot of my PA cohorts who I've spoken to across the country, who've also forward booked their events, they've been told that their party plans will not now happen. Here at Mount Anvil, we traditionally hold an overnight annual event for colleagues, and you can bring your partners along as well. So that's something we all really, really look forward to at the end of the year. And previous year we had that at a hotel in the Cotswolds. I forward booked and paid deposits for an overnight stay in Windsor this year. We're adopting a wait and see until the fourth quarter this year to test the sentiment and also the appetite amongst colleagues as to whether they want to have a party. In anticipation of party not going ahead, I've already reached out to the venue to see what their stance will be regarding any deductions for potentially moving the date onto next year, 2021 Christmas. I do believe that venues and companies need to consider relaxing their cancellation policies and perhaps offering refunds to companies who do have concerns, especially as the economic climate pre-COVID wasn't so great. And I know that a lot of companies, because of that, were leaning towards smaller team parties rather than one large company-wide event, keeping it on a small scale. The other consideration that we'd need to bear in mind when we revisit whether we're going to proceed with our event or not is planning logistics. You know, will people feel comfortable actually travelling? And also, say, for example, you know, if they're shielding vulnerable relatives at home, if they have an elderly relative living with them, or say they have a family member who's got diabetes or whatever, then going out, mixing and mingling with 300 colleagues and then going home, will they feel comfortable about that? And in addition, another point that's been raised amongst, you know, a lot of my other fellow PAs is that with people being furloughed and a good few of those being made redundant, you know, there's going to be a need for sensitivity as well and actually holding celebrations. Is it the right thing to do? And people are actually facing hardships. I think the main message that's coming through is a lot of people, like myself, we're waiting on direction for whether parties are actually going to go ahead. I know that somebody at the University of Bath thinks we might have a vaccine by then, although others have warned it won't be until 2021 until we're properly protected from the virus. So, as I say, you know, it's difficult at this stage, I think, to actually start second guessing.
Thank you, Yvonne. Sorry, I was just getting a little bits of grips with the technology. I'm sorry, Mia, that the panelist wasn't available to be seen when we first done it. So I just want to apologise for that. It's all new, shall we say. I have this next question, sorry, the same question again, sorry, for Claire. So what do you think? Do you think large gatherings of people will be likely restricted for the foreseeable future? Do you think that will make changes for Christmas parties at all?
I agree with Yvonne, actually. I mean, we're in a really difficult situation here. You know, nobody's got a crystal ball. And I think that, I mean, if they're going to be getting schools back and things are getting back to normal, then, I mean, I would imagine that they're going to be allowing events, but how big those are going to be is very questionable. I think it's important to still keep your team connected or connected to your clients, you know, whoever that Christmas party's for or that event's for. I think particularly at the minute when we're all working from home and everything feels so isolated and so different, I think that's an important thing to do. On the other hand, you really need to be careful about people's sensitivities. Yvonne raised a really good point about people who are trying to shield family members, maybe themselves have health issues that need to be taken into consideration. So I think if you were going to do a live event, I think it needs to be a lot smaller than your normal Christmas party. Maybe you could do several smaller events, or, you know, for example, you could do a hybrid. So you could do something that's in person, but then have the majority of people joining virtually, or you could just go virtual. I think there's another side to this, and that is because, as Yvonne says, we just don't know what the future holds. You really don't want to be in a situation where you've planned your live event, you've paid out a lot of money, you then just have to cancel everything. So I think whatever people do needs to be able to pivot to a virtual event if needs be at the last minute.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Claire. Moving on to the second question. Andrew, I'm going to direct this one at you. If parties are going ahead, albeit on a smaller scale, how can you guys as a venue, or how can we as events companies do things differently but still have a good celebration?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, as we go through this, and we, like everybody else, are just desperately waiting for more information and what will happen in the coming months, and we'll have to be led by that to an extent. But as a venue, we've learned to be very adaptable over the last few months, and we're very open to, you know, we personally are thinking, actually, what can we do? How can we adapt to the things, as well as just that, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, but actually, what can we do? So we're incredibly adaptable. As we start to think about numbers and thinking about what spaces that we can use for things, I think that idea that you've got this room that's crammed full of people, that's got bottlenecks around the bars and a crowded dance floor and all of that type of thing, and maybe it's the joiner party we possibly need to put to one side for a while. And I think then as venues, we start to look at actually what open spaces have we got that we can really open out so everybody's not on top of each other. What private dining rooms and facilities have we got so that actually you can do it in smaller groups, and particularly you can have those events with just your team, because again, you probably feel like you've got more control if it's just your team as opposed to mixing with different groups. So I think we can think about exclusivity of use and those types of facilities. And you know, if people approach us as a venue, then we're in a position by where we can actually start to think about what spaces we've got and how we can separate people out, and we can give people a little bit more scope for how those events can happen. I would encourage people, and I think venues will all have different ideas on what the minimum numbers will be for spaces, so it will be more spaced out. I think there's something about what the entertainment is, because again, when you think about the typical disco or the band and everybody's up and dancing, is it time to move away from that for a year or so? And actually, if you've got people sat around a table and you could have a comedian or something like that on that actually isn't involving as many people moving about, but just looking at actually still an opportunity to get everybody together, potentially celebrate or thank people for what I think has been an incredibly tough year, or will have been a tough year, but not necessarily have that, you know, I was speaking to people the other day about actually doing this over a lunchtime or doing it earlier in the day, because the added dimension that makes it harder is Christmas parties are associated with drinking. And so therefore, you know, that's a factor that really does complicate things. You know, it's about table service and about how we bring the drinks to you rather than people crowding around the bar. You know, we're lucky here. We've got a lot of space, and we've got a really good number of private dining rooms. We've got a big open facilities that we can use to mean that actually it breaks it down into smaller Christmas parties that have just got the space to move around. And I think all I'd go back with and say, actually, as venues, we're incredibly adaptable and we're desperate to make those sort of times work. So it's about what we can do.
A bit of background noise there. Thank you very much, Andrew. Same question to Yvonne as well. I mean, how do you think we could do things differently so we can still have a celebration?
Right, well, the chances are in December we'll all be very, very health conscious, probably a lot more so this year than last, perhaps, and looking out for vulnerable colleagues as well. I suppose using the 1 metre distancing rule recommended by the government at the moment, I suppose you're just swinging your arms about, aren't you? That means, I think, size-wise, in terms of rooms, you can only fit about 100 people in, say, a 10 metre by 10 metre room. For seated dinners, which we traditionally have, that would mean only 6 people at a 6-foot round table instead of 12. So, you know what, that's half the normal capacity. So I suppose it's challenges finding venues that are going to be large enough to actually be able to host large groups with those, I suppose, minimal social distancing requirements actually in place. And then you've also got, I suppose, another consideration where, you know, if you've got a big venue and people are rattling around like beans in a can, will it feel busy and atmospheric enough, you know, for the event, or will it feel like you're attending, you know, a really unpopular event? So I know that, you know, across the market, people are trying to innovate with things. I know Bombas and Par, they've introduced what they call a visionary health and sanitation device under a festive guise, which is an anti-bac snow machine, which sounds quite interesting. I suppose feedback that I've received as well from other event organisers, say like All About Venues, they've told me the main change they're seeing from clients is people, as you say, Andrew, breaking down parties into smaller groups. So say, for example, if you're due to have a party for 200 people, they're being approached now about having, for smaller parties, 50 people, same menu, same level of entertainment and standard of venue, just on a smaller scale. And they're also using it, I suppose, as a network and engagement tool, because they're randomly selecting the people for each party, so that people who perhaps traditionally don't spend a lot of time face to face with those people within the company, that they can network and mingle with those that they don't have a lot of contact with on a day-to-day basis. So it'll be interesting to see how people can adapt.
Lovely, thank you, Yvonne. And lastly, Jules, same question to you, really. How do you think we can do things differently?
Hi guys. Yeah, so I think everyone's covered it so far in terms of really being forced into smaller numbers. So I think if people are in office bubbles, it may be sensible to keep your Christmas party within those bubbles. And like Yvonne rightly said, 4 parties for 50. I think also for guys like Yvonne and your PA network that are going to have to source an alternative or different venue to what they're normally used to, is using guys like us that can actually do that for you and take that stress away. We're working really closely with venues here at Space Meetings and Events to make sure that we're fully versed with their SOPs, their safety risk assessments, things like that. So in terms of smaller numbers, like Andrew said, different type of entertainment. Instead of having tables of 10, you have a table of 5 for employees who are vulnerable or shielded. Maybe looking at some sort of hybrid where you can sort of stream people from home into the event for a short period of time, because obviously it's quite difficult to have somebody on on a Zoom or other software that's out there available to stream people into the event. You'd really need to do that for a short period of time, but it just means that they can still feel part of it. And there's lots of other inventive and creative ways to make that happen, so that everybody does feel that they're involved. In terms of venues, as an agent, as a venue finder, we need to make sure that we are able to negotiate with venues so that companies that need to source larger space, it doesn't become out of budget for that company to be able to, justify the event as a whole. So we need to look at, what's the cost for going larger? How does that impact? And again, like Yvonne said, you don't want to feel like you're in an empty warehouse type space. And that all comes into theming, dressing and arranging the room, but also making sure that the risk assessments are there. And that's the main priority, to keep everybody safe.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Jules. Okay, moving on to question 3. I'm going to direct this one to you, Andrew, again. What steps will you expect to see venues needing to take to reassure guests when they actually attend your venue? I love this one.
I think it needs to be very obvious and very clear from the outset. So in my mind, before people have even... The whole idea that you're attending an event of whatever type, actually you're going to have a bunch of questions now that spring to mind that 6 months ago none of us cared about. Whereas now that it's not just about how do I get there now, it's actually about what do I expect to see once I'm there. So the very first thing that we need to do is make sure we've got all the pre-arrival information out to people so they know what to expect. They know our processes, our procedures, how they've changed, about how actually what will reception look like we're used to what supermarkets and things like that and shops now, and about any queuing systems and about screens and things like that. So actually we need to make sure on our websites, on the information that we send out, we're actually painting that picture so that people know and understand. And I think that for me is crucial. It's the information in advance. So that if we haven't addressed something that somebody's concerned about, or somebody has particular needs, in the same way we've done in the last few years with regards to diets and stuff like that, actually they can contact us and say, what's happening with this? So I think those comments that we've had about risk assessments, things like that, they have to be accessible at the measures that we're taking place. And it's really interesting because it's just changing every day at the moment. And, as a venue, as everybody else is, I'm working up 3, 4, 5 what feels like 20 different scenarios about, well, it could be this or it could be that. So we're doing a lot of planning. I think as people enter, I think we're trying desperately hard to make sure there's some really clear signage and really clear instructions for people. But we're still trying to keep a certain amount of the ethos and the culture of the buildings that we already had. Because there's that balance, isn't there, about actually, do you want it to feel very clinical and very, or do you actually want it to be feel like a little bit like it did before, and comfortable and relaxed and that ambience? So there will be signage about telling you what we do. There will be hand sanitizer and all of those things when you're entering into places. We'll change all the capacities in public areas as well as in our sort of meeting or event spaces. So I think it'll just feel incredibly prominent, but it's down to us now as venues to get that balance right. So that I think Yvonne said before that you don't go into a venue and it just feel cold and soulless or anything like that. You just don't want that. So we have to get that balance right. From our staff and from the team that are looking after you, they have to be, and they will be, a lot more visible. So the enhanced cleaning and the sanitisation, people need to see that happening. People need to walk through and have that great reassurance. Actually, when you're being delivered your food or anything like that, you need to feel it safe. So you actually need to see the face coverings or the screens and all of those things, I think, to reassure. So it will be different, but it's also really important that we're still hospitality.
Sorry about the little flicking about there. I got a little bit sidetracked, and I was trying to get a different view and I just messed it up. So sorry for the attendees for seeing that. I'm going to come to Claire. You obviously deal with venues as well, don't you? What steps have you seen venues taking that they're doing to reassure their guests?
Well, I think the great news is that all the venues really that we're working with are just massively taking this on board. I think your point, Andrew, is really interesting about making sure that people understand before they arrive what measures you're taking. We're doing a lot of that as an agency, getting those policies in place, getting the communication in place for delegates so that they know, clearly what's going to happen when they arrive. But I think, what we're seeing mainly from venues is kind of three main pillars, I suppose, of this. So, massive increase in cleaning, disinfection facilities for everybody available everywhere, and also social distancing measures in place so that, you don't necessarily have people crowding up to a bar, or maybe food is either going to be served, or if you did want to do a buffet, it's more of a kind of a package grab and go type of thing. There's some really interesting tech out there actually that a lot of people are using. So I don't know if anybody heard the Radio 4 interview from Andrew Lloyd Webber, who's trying to get theatres back open. But there's a lot of things where you can measure temperature, there's electrostatic cleaning, airports are using this, hotels are using it actually. I think Hilton have just announced that they're going to be using those kind of measures as well. So, there's a lot of stuff out there that can be really, really helpful, I think. And I think it's a question of, if you're organising this yourself, or whether it's yourself or your agency that you're working with, that you clearly understand what the venues are doing, whether that fits with what your policies are, and whether there's anything else that you need to add into this. And I think certainly for us as an agency, we see this very much as a partnership with venues, so that we work together to create a really good environment for clients and attendees to go into, and that everybody's comfortable, and the venues are comfortable as well, because obviously, I have to say, as venues, I know you guys have been massively under the cosh, and you're really trying to come to terms with what's happened and get your businesses back up and running as well.
Lovely, thank you very much, Claire. Moving on to the next question, I'm going to start with Yvonne on this one. If you are cancelling celebrations this year, what, if anything, will your company be doing instead of a party to thank employees?
Well, I suppose touching back on the point that, colleagues are still furloughed, or if your teammates have been redundant, then celebrations will very likely be deferred to next year, or very, very low key. As a plan B, I suppose, being an event organiser, I've always got a plan B tucked up my sleeve. So myself, I've been investigating options in case we do cancel our main Christmas party, and investigating options about spending the same value, perhaps on something like a nice hamper from Fortnum & Mason's or something similar instead, to actually thank colleagues for all of their hard work during the year. One thing's for sure, though, I think we can expect Christmas 2020 to be a very, very modest affair this year. I suppose one upside, that would be the best Christmas ever for grumpy Christmas Scrooges, won't it?
It'd be lovely. We could all get out thinking. I'm going to direct the same question, thank you, Yvonne, to Claire. What do you think, like, would you, sorry, if celebrations have been cancelled, what do you think, if anything, that companies will be doing instead?
Well, I always think it's a great idea to still keep that connection with your team, your employees, your clients, whoever it is that celebration's for. And to be honest with you, if it was me, I would be probably looking at some kind of charity event, actually, because I think that ticks several boxes. You can still run it as an event, you can still run it as a Christmas celebration, but then you're actually using your conference dollars, if you like, your Christmas party pounds, to do some good. And we've all seen that there's been some charities that are really needing some assistance. NSPCC, Women's Refuge, all of those kind of charities are coming to the fore. But generally speaking, I think charity is having a very tough year. They can't open their shops, they can't do fundraising. So I think that would really be able to enable your company to put something back into the community. You could choose something local, you could choose something national, international, it doesn't really matter. Or maybe get your employees to vote for who they'd like to do that for. And then I think, even if you're not doing something live, you could then do something virtual. So you could maybe have people packing food parcels, or putting together hampers for maybe women's refuges. There's just so many ideas out there, and you can really make it into a celebration. You could still have a DJ playing, people can see what each other are doing. Maybe you could also have employees doing their own action for the charity, filming it, and then everyone can see what they've done.
Thank you very much, Claire. And over to you, Jules, same question. What do you think? You're on mute, Jules.
I think if companies are going to have to cancel celebrations because of the current climate, your question is how do they thank employees instead of a company celebration? I think really it has to be reward, recognition, or incentive, and what that looks like would really, I think, be depicted by the type of business or the type of industry. I'm not sure cash bonuses are likely at the minute within most companies, but there certainly could be gifted, like you say, hampers, hotel spa stay, or some sort of self-catering accommodation where they could actually go away for a couple of days with their family, where everyone's been cooped up for so long in their own homes. It might be nice for them to actually gift something to the family rather than the individual. So that might be a nice idea. But I think to thank personally an employee, it has to be reward, recognition, or an incentive.
Lovely. Thank you, Jules. Thank you so much. So moving on to the next question. This is a big one, this one. When do you think physical events will take place, and what do you think they'll initially look like? I'm going to start with Andrew. No pressure.
When will that happen? Goodness. Well, I'm really hopeful that it starts soon. I think realistically, we always know August is a slow time anyway. So I think we have to hope that whilst it might be a slow start, that we can get moving a little bit in September, and we can start to get people back on site. The other benefit, if we're lucky in September and we have weather like we have now, or where Yvonne is, we can actually, you know, make use of outdoor spaces and things like that as well. Whether that's a little bit of al fresco dining, whether that's a bit of a barbecue, or actually just open the windows and get the fresh air in. So again, that's the benefit that, again, that sort of September time really has. I think as well, from my perspective, whilst I think people will be nervous, and I think people will be very considered about what they do, I think there's part of, maybe I'm just speaking for me, but there's a part of all of us that almost can't wait to be able to get back together with people again in a meeting, because this is a great forum and Zoom's great, but it's still not quite the same as getting everybody together by where you can properly do those little conversations, the networking. So I think there is a desire, if people are reassured, to get people back in. So I really hope it will. I think once people are back in, because chances are we're going to be a little bit quieter as venues, then that works really nicely as well, because there'll be a little bit more space. So actually places won't feel overcrowded. And I know we're really thinking hard about how we really do separate out, so that therefore you don't end up with a situation by where, you know, on a busy day, everybody's in the coffee lounge. Actually, you'll all we'll break out, so everybody will have almost their own individual coffee lounges and their own different individual breakout areas. I think technology will still play a huge part. I struggle to see how we go back from the fact that we've all got used to technology so well. And I think, particularly if there are those people who would be attending an event are travelling in from further, or maybe shielding, actually we'll be a lot more au fait with utilising technology and allow people to join the meeting as opposed to those that are physically there on site. What I would say as well is, considering, in order to, because with that element of social distancing that will still be in place, actually consider different days and look at different days. So we've got a lot more flexibility always on a Monday or a Friday on those shoulder days. So if people are willing to do that, then that kind of allows for naturally some of the things that you need to happen with distancing to happen, because venues, number one, they're going to be desperate for those events to come back. But once the venues have got flexibility, we can really move around and make it quite bespoke for groups.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Same question actually now to Claire. When do you think physical events will take place? Do you think they'll look like?
We are actually seeing things starting to pick up October and November. I think there's a massive need for human beings to connect, and like Andrew just said, I just think people really want to get back together. I was speaking to a client yesterday who said they actually run a European event and they're thinking about doing it, so that would involve travel as well, but they're looking at doing something in Central Europe so people can easily maybe get there by car even if necessary. And I think what they're going to do is just literally decide in late September, maybe do it in a month's time and just go for it. So they would have a little bit more confidence to do it. We're also seeing some hybrid events come back in the autumn. So you'll have a very small group in the live space, but then you'll have everybody else virtually. So it's quite interesting actually, because instead of having this thing of where we've had before with live streaming, where the exciting bit is happening on site and people are like joining just for bits and pieces, this is almost turning it on its head, and the virtual event is going to be where everybody's sitting and there's all of that engagement and networking and so on that's going to go on the platform, and it's more a question of how can you then integrate the people in the live space to be able to network with the people that are on the virtual platform. So I think, just, you know, in summary, I think people are starting to think about this for the autumn, and we just really have to keep our fingers crossed and hope that, you know, we don't get a second wave.
Keep forgetting I mute myself. Yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you so much, Claire. I'm going to finish with Jules quickly on this question, and then I'm a bit conscious of time. And we do have 2 more questions, but I'm going to ask them at the end of the Q&A for our panellists. But we'll get Jules answering this one now, and then we'll switch to our sponsors. So over to you, Jules.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm in agreement. I think we're going to see you know, some resurgence for Q4 from October, November time. One of my industry colleagues spoke to me yesterday in terms of live events, expos, trade shows, those types of events, and the big conferences classed as live events. She's been advised, and she runs a massive trade show, she's been advised that these types of events will be classed by the government as non-essential shopping, like non-essential shops. So as long as the risk assessments are there and the SOPs are followed and all the guidelines are there and the signage, you know, again, it'll be a case of running hybrid, but there will be a need for it, because even with the virtual events, they're fantastic, and we you know, there is going to be the need for it. You do lose those micro expressions and that sort of, that, you know, like Andrew said, we're hospitality, we're a very touchy-feely industry, and we're missing everybody. So we're all chomping at the bit to get back. We're a little bit tired of virtual. So, you know, bring it on Q4 is what I say. And if we can all just, you know, let's just hope that from October onwards, we're getting somewhere back to where we were. But I think there will always be some form of virtual insanity, you know.
As a business, we've actually got our events coming up start of September. So I'm really hoping that we're all starting to get back to normal. Our plan B is actually to make them hybrid.
Yeah.
So yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I'm going to end the panel just for now. We have got a couple more questions. I'm going to bring them back at the Q&A because I need to bring our sponsors on now and kind of slightly overrun. We've got some product pitches now by firstly Rebecca Thomas from Eventify. I just need to share my screen. So I'm just going to mute the panelists at the moment, just the tech side of it, so I get all confused. Let me just mute. He's all muted. Okay. Rebecca's on now. I'm just going to share my screen. No, that's not going to work. Right, there we go. Hi. So firstly, hi Rebecca. Nice to see you. I just want to introduce Rebecca quickly. Rebecca Thomas works for Eventify. She's the co-founder and director of Eventify. They have a great working relationship with PA Life and are proud to be part of today's session. Eventify is event management and venue finding agency based in London, but also worldwide. It is a completely free venue finding service, handy for busy people like the PAs, and they live by the motto that all events are special, whatever the size, location or style. Rebecca, I'll hand this over to you. So you've got your 2-minute pitch now. I'm going to mute myself and I'll leave it with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlotte. So hi everyone. As Charlotte said, my name's Rebecca Thomas. I'm co-founder and director of Eventify. So as Charlotte said, we've got a great close working relationship with PA Life, so really proud to be part of today's session, the sponsor of the event. So Eventify, we are an event management and venue finding agency. So we're based in London, but we work across the UK and worldwide. Our venue finding service is completely free. So as Charlotte mentioned, it's really handy for busy people like yourselves. It saves you so much time. Just pop the brief over to us and we do the rest. We do live by the motto that all events are special, and this really is reflected in the type of events we manage. 90% of the business we do is corporate. Our portfolio of events includes small meetings up to large conferences, small private dining up to large gala and awards dinners, and of course lots of celebration events which we love, and which includes Christmas parties. We've got many years of experience between us, so that comes with lots of industry connections and knowledge of venues, so we really use that when organising events with you. So now more than ever, as we do slowly but surely return to live events, your guests need to be made to feel very safe while still being made to feel very special. So with Eventify, you're guaranteed that exceptional service. So we give the very best attention to detail to any project, whether that's venue finding or full event management. At the moment, we're keeping up to date with the measures that event venues are putting into place. So we are on hand at the moment to help you navigate through the unknown terrain that we all find ourselves in at the moment. Yeah, so that's it from me. Please do get in touch with us if you'd like to chat about your next event, or just to chat about getting back to our events, any kind of uncertainties about Christmas. Obviously, we're here to help and we're here to chat. Follow us on social media. It's at Eventify UK, which you can see on the screen, and our email address, our website is eventifyuk.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hang on just there, just mute yourself for me, but just hang on till the end because we've got some Q&As. We might have some questions for you as well. We noticed that we have some sponsors in the last session. Secondly, now we have, Gail Tomlinson, Gail Tomlinson Short, Head of Business Development for Warwick Conferences. There we are, Gail. Hi, I can see you now.
Hi.
Right, I've got the slide up. Could you just let me know when you'd like me to move the slides along?
Of course, yes, absolutely. Thanks, Charlotte. Yeah, good morning. My name's Gail Tomlinson Short. I'm Acting Head of Business Development here at Warwick Conferences. They're the commercially sold event spaces at the University of Warwick, centrally located in the heart of England. So if you want to move to the next slide. Thanks, Charlotte. As you've just heard from Andrew, Warwick Conferences have some impressive spaces for your celebration events, such as the Slate and our large event spaces on the University of Warwick campus, which we collectively call the Conference Park. But whatever you're looking for from your event, we have suitable spaces to learn within our 3 residential conference centres, Arden, Radcliffe and Scarman, which include more creative spaces with alternative seating arrangements, such as our living room space, our kitchen space, space with bean bags, and we've got a blackboard to scribble on, or our impressive C-suite style boardroom. All these spaces provide an environment to support quicker and more thorough engagement between delegates. Next slide, please, Charlotte. Well-being is at the forefront of all of our minds during this time. We've always understood the benefits of being in a space with natural light, but we're happy to now also offer a selection of outdoor meeting spaces where you can enjoy being in the fresh air, surrounded by nature, giving you space to think. Whatever your reason for getting together, we work with you to understand your objectives and help you imagine greater possibilities and create better and memorable experiences. Next one, please, Charlotte. Warwick Conferences goes well beyond a functional space. We offer endless possibilities and ideas that come from a tailored and experience-focused approach, with better outcomes that come from going the extra mile every day for our customers. Not forgetting our in-house event production team, who can support you with your future hybrid events in our studios or our completely virtual event, should you have difficulty in bringing people together at this time. We offer world-class facilities from 1,200 delegates in a lively and attractive destination, and our unique relationship with the University of Warwick means we offer a satisfaction that comes from knowing your event helps support life-changing education and world-leading research. So if you're looking for a space in which to imagine or experience or achieve, then please visit our website and our social media sites. We'd love to start a conversation with you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Gail. Thank you. Okay, so we have got a bit of time left, so I'm going to switch back now. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. There we go. Get there one day. I might, by the end of this day, I may actually get this tech and it'll be fine. I'm going to flip back to some of these questions, and I've noticed I've got a few Q&As as well that I need to answer. Yvonne, I want to start with you actually. With the pandemic halting business and revenue stream, do you think there's going to be much budget allocated? Yvonne, you're muted. There we are. Sorry, I can't the pictures. I can't unmute you no more. They've stopped me.
No problem. Revenue streams. Well, I'm hopeful that the budgets that were set at the beginning of the year will still stand as they are. At the moment, I've got more money than I know what to do with, because we've had, Wimbledon cancelled, Ascot cancelled, a lot of events. But obviously with anxiety around large gatherings and the possibility of a second wave of infections, I think financial decisions about any parties will probably be made much later on in the year. I love the idea that was mentioned earlier about perhaps diverting some of the excess funds that weren't spent this year towards charities. I love that idea about, making up packs for women's refuges and perhaps food banks as well. That's something I'm going to, speak to our chief executive about.
Amazing.
Also, I think, you know, colleagues still furloughed, or if, as I say, you know, teammates have been made redundant, then I think the right thing to do perhaps would be to have, you know, a more low-key celebration. So,
okay. Yeah, no, that's lovely. Thank you, Yvonne. Claire, same question to you, really. I mean, do you think that there's going to be much budget for Christmas parties at all?
Well, I hope there will be some budget, because as I keep saying, I do think it's important that companies stay connected and teams stay connected. Obviously, I appreciate, you know, we're going into, well, everybody's talking about going into a big recession. So I think obviously people have that on their minds. And obviously everyone's been affected by that pandemic. It's good to hear that you've got lots of budget, Yvonne. That's a great positive. And obviously, if you need some help with that. But no, genuinely, I think there probably will be lower budgets for this kind of incentive. And I think people will be thinking about how to spend that a little bit more creatively. You know, and again, I think sometimes having these lower budgets does help us, just give us a bit of an edge to think about how we can use that really effectively and really well. So yeah, I think we're not going to see big budgets this year.
I think we'll hopefully there is budgets, and also we have something. I mean, I'm up for a Christmas party, some kind of reward, anything. I'm up for a drink now, I'm not gonna lie. I'm done. No, I'm joking. Right, last, I've got a question actually in the Q&A box, so I'm just going to come to first. Someone's asked, can someone explain how a hybrid event might work for a Christmas party? I don't know if does anyone want to particularly answer that question? You want to put your hand up and I can, Jules? Yeah, you're muted.
I'm off mute. Hi guys. Yes, so really I think hybrid event can work, like we said earlier, if you're having to split the celebration, if you do go ahead, if you're working with office bubbles, you've got maybe smaller you know, numbers, multiple events, those that are staying at home, those are not confident or a bit stressed about travel or coming to an event as well. Like somebody made a point earlier, if alcohol's involved, you know, that could really make people nervous about the whole social distancing element, because when people have had a few drinks, they maybe get a little bit over familiar and a little bit too over friendly, and then all of a sudden that 1 metre is down to 10 centimetres. So we have to be very mindful for that. So I think that there is going to be a worry this year, but I think it will, with a hybrid event, it's just about making sure that you've got a good production team, you've got the right software, you engage with maybe an agency like us who can, you know, take all of that from you. We have, I have attended a couple of industry events over the last couple of weeks. One last week was an Ibiza social event that I attended, and there was an amazing host. So we can create the hybrid element of it. You'd probably, like I say earlier, just stream in for an hour or so with those people that are wanting to sort of come in. You can send out gift packs previously. You can create a theme for the party that the guys at home can sort of get on board with, be it fancy dress, be it disco, be it Ibiza, you know, Narnia. You could have après ski parties. Then you can, you know, whoever's the organizer in the corporate, you know, they send out something that everybody sort of opens prior to the hybrid, or you open online. You can have something like last week where, you know, like the guys from some of the mixology companies can create cocktails and mocktail recipes. Everyone can do one online together. You can have something actually delivered as an incentive if you want to recognise a star employee or somebody that's had it really tough, or you just want to give somebody some recognition. You can actually do that live through the hybrid experience, and they can be, so everybody on the virtual element is streamed into the room. So you've got your AV and everybody's come into the room, and you can kind of, that's kind of how the hybrid works. But you need to make sure there's some cohesion in either the theming, the gifts that's sent out beforehand. That could be, you know, just ingredients to make a gin cocktail or whatever that may be. But it just makes that sort of, gives that cohesion between the live event and the virtual. But they do work really well. Like I say, we had a wonderful host. I felt like I was on a flight to Ibiza. You know, I had disco lights in my kitchen. I had my sparkles on. And actually, you know, after an hour, I was, you know, I was a little bit squiffy, but it was really good fun. They streamed in a live saxophonist. There are virtual bands you can engage with, entertainment companies. You know, there's loads of stuff that you can do. The other thing that we thought of is, you know, you can get a Spotify playlist together as a, you know, as a company. You've got that Spotify playlist for the hybrid event. So everybody's, and you can play that, you know, through, so it's not sort of glitchy or whatever. And then you could even brand a CD and give everyone a copy of the Spotify playlist, or, you know, do something like that afterwards. But there's loads and loads of stuff you can do in terms of making that hybrid element work and be interactive and, you know, be hosted and vibrant and lively, and, you know, so people can still feel that they've taken part of it and taken care of themselves.
Sorry to cut you off, Jules. Thank you so much. Rebecca just wanted to quickly add to something on that question. Yeah, just unmute yourself, Rebecca. Thank you.
Yes, I think Jules covered that really well. So there's obviously so many options that you can do, but one example that we're working with a client at the moment, they every year put on an autumn ball, which is instead of a Christmas party. So unfortunately they can't have it this autumn, and they've had to make the decision to postpone it and do the live event next year, just due to people travelling from all different offices. And they like to, it's about 500 people, so it's quite a big one to be able to put on by October. But we're working with them at the moment to still have a celebration on what should have been the event this year. So there's obviously people that have been working hard this year that deserve the recognition in the awards element of the event. So we're going to have a virtual event where there's still an awards ceremony. So having, like Jules touched on, that really engaging host that kind of keeps everyone going with the virtual call, which you need to keep everyone going from home. People will get, the nominees will all be on the call, the winners will get their award, albeit virtually, but they'll get the award delivered to them before the event, and obviously they can just get that and have their kind of moment, which you don't want to be, if you can't have the events this year, the live event, you don't want people to have that moment taken away from them, so they still get their recognition and the celebration this year. And then the rest of the staff will get some kind of care package, so they can on that Friday night they can have fun at home, so like the cocktail kit, kind of whatever works for them. So yeah, you can really still have that momentous occasion, but just a bit differently this year.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. We've got 1 minute left. I don't know if there's any other questions. I don't know if anyone else wanted to sort of touch on anything quickly. Are you all okay? Good.
Yeah, the only thing I say is that, you know, I have seen there are a lot of media providers at the moment gearing up for these hybrid events to stream, share, and also save photographs, videos, and run hashtags and things, and also running competitions between the different parties as well. So,
well, we're the same. We're exactly
being creative, isn't it?
Yeah,
we're best dressed, yeah.
Actually, another thing you could do is to host a talent competition. That would work really well with hybrid or virtual, where you actually get members of your company to do singing, playing instruments, performing, whatever it is they do best. And I think that's a great way of connecting your team together as well.
Yeah, one thing, Claire, I suppose if you're doing like a Zoom karaoke, if it's annoying enough, at least you can put your mute on, can't you?
And also for those guys that are logging in virtually, some people are, you know, there's different levels of what might stress somebody out, but you can actually be online and not have your photograph, not, you know, people can't see you, but you can still be part of it if you feel a bit uncomfortable. So there's always a way to make colleagues feel involved. I think that's the important thing.
Amazing. Right, we're going to end it there. I want to thank all of you for coming on, sponsors, all of our panellists as well. For the attendees, we're going to send out our thank yous after this, and we will send the contact details of all of the panellists and also all of the sponsors as well. So should you wish to get in contact with them and ask them more questions sort of on a one-to-one basis, you can do. Okay. So for me, thank you very much from PA Life. Thank you very much again to you guys. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.